It's the DNVR Avalanche playoff preview series, the one you really want to hear from us about, Dallas versus Colorado. This is, of course, presented by Bet365. Look, it's been pretty confident that this was going to be the matchup for about a month, but you finally get confirmation, you finally crack on and dig into it here. The Avs are set up to be the healthiest they've been all season to start the playoffs. Dallas is likely heading into the playoffs with some injury trouble. Of course, Dallas has the 2-0 record in this era over the Avs in the playoffs. Pete DeBoer 3-0 against Jared Bednar. All the numbers in that kind of way seem to stack up against the Avs. But is this the year the Avs get through Dallas, gentlemen?
Go ahead, AJ.
Maybe. You have to feel like if it doesn't happen this year, it never will with these groups.
I agree
with these
that.
cores.
Yeah.
This is by far the best the Avs have been set up for it. Honestly, they were set up to beat them in the bubble, and then, as we know, a million
Michael Hutchinson was in
sideways.
that.
Yeah, and they still should have won that game with Michael Hutchinson in net.
Yeah.
It took a Yoel Kiviranta hat trick to eliminate them. So
meow the cat.
I don't know what to say. I'm just gonna keep making caveman noises, I guess. This is as best as they've been set up for it, just with the health considerations and the strength on strength of each roster. I think you are looking at it and saying this is as good a situation as you could ask for the Avalanche.
Yeah, I would agree. It really should line up to an Avs win, but they have to go out and do it. So Nothing is guaranteed, put it to you that way. On Dallas's side, at time of recording, it's sounding more and more likely that Heiskanen may end up missing the entire first round for Dallas. We'll see what happens if they get down in the series and they need a guy, or maybe he's on a faster track than people might expect. But maybe the most key piece to this series is the health of Miro Heiskanen, no?
Yeah, he's their catalyst, right? We all know that. On their back end, or maybe the whole team, right? I mean, he's their engine, so to speak, in my book. They have some good players. They don't have a McKinnon, but I do believe they're more MVP type player as Heiskanen for me. Now, with that said, do you see him? Not see him? I don't know. It doesn't sound like you'll see him, but you never know. It's playoffs, right? And all of a sudden, miracles happen. Next thing you know, you see someone. It is what it is. I like the Dallas Stars. I respect the Dallas Stars. I like Jay Conger. Not because he's a BU Terrier, but because I like him. With that said, Mikko Rantanen is one of my favorite Av of all time. He's a playoff performer. So Dallas did get better in my book. If you compare from the trade deadline on, you know what I mean? And that was a big boost to their team, right? I would say C-Mac did an unbelievable job at the deadline to give a boost to his locker room, and we saw the jolt it did. But the same thing for Jim Nill and the Dallas Stars. Acquiring Mikko and then signing him was a big piece and a big booster for their locker room. So I'll wait till we give our predictions, but I like the Avalanche. I like the way they're constructed. I think they're built for winning. I think Jake has had more experience in the playoffs than Mackenzie Blackwood. So maybe if you're talking about edges, I don't know. One's never really played in the playoffs, and the other one's been pretty good, right? So, yeah. I mean, all in all, I think it's a fair match to say that it's like the clash of the Titans, so to speak, right? Because one of them's going home. So, unfortunately, a great team is going home, and that's the nature of the beast in the National Hockey League and the way the divisions are set up. And one of those guys will not be happy. One of those fan base and one of those managements and one of those, teams, players will not be very excited after this first round.
I got to tell you, it makes me sick that their top two scorers are Mikko Rantanen and Matt Duchene.
Tough to look at. Tough to look at
sick,
for sure.
Man. Use 2 top 10 picks to build the beast that you now have to try to slay. Ugh! I hate it.
It's tough. Is it fair to say you guys think the winner of this series is the favorite in the West?
How healthy are they after the series?
That is fair. They have to play the game, of course.
That is my biggest concern, is that whoever wins this series comes out of it absolutely battered. And Winnipeg is just like, cool, we'll take this, thank you. Although, the Jets have to obviously win their series too. It's not going to be a walkover for them.
Could be a wicked hot St. Louis team they run into. We don't know for sure at time of recording. So
yeah, they have a lot of their own demons they have to try and get through.
Injuries are for everybody, right? Anybody can slip on something on the sidewalk, right? So it's like, but you're right. I mean, you would think that this is going to be good hockey and intense hockey, and that's when injuries happen. And we're knock on wood, hoping that both teams. I don't like to see, I don't like to see guys get hurt. You know what I mean? I want to see best on best. I've always been that way, and as a player or as a fan or as manager, I want to see best on best. So hopefully everybody can stay relatively healthy. But it's almost not possible through a long playoff run.
I mean, let's flip the script and talk about the healthy side of both of these two teams. Sure looks like Gabe Landeskog is on track to play in this round 1 series for the Avalanche. It sounds like Tyler Seguin will also be on track to play in round 1 for Dallas. So both teams getting a guy back. When you look at what their lineups are shaking out to be, am I a homer, or do the Colorado Avalanche have the edge here?
Well, I think when you get to the top of the lineup, you have Nathan MacKinnon, and look, we would all agree Mikko Rantanen is awesome. He's not Nathan MacKinnon. And life without Nathan MacKinnon has proven Mikko Rantanen to be a very good player. But even in Dallas, obviously what happened in Carolina was kind of a disaster for the guy.
Yeah.
He was not very good there, and they were not very good with him. But he, as of right now, he has 17 points in 18 games. Mm-hmm. He's really good. He's really good. But that's not the guy that he was for the last several years in Colorado. And the obvious answer as to why that would be is there's no Nathan MacKinnon there. And Rupe Hintz is really good. Matt Duchene is having another really good year for them. Wyatt Johnston's a really good player. None of those guys are as good as Nathan MacKinnon. And it's obvious that he helped elevate Rantanen's game on some level, and now he's helping elevate everybody else. I've spent this morning going through line data. You look at what those guys' numbers look like with Nathan MacKinnon versus with Brock Nelson. Brock Nelson's really good. Brock Nelson is really good. The numbers are good with Brock Nelson, but with Nathan MacKinnon, some of these guys are on another planet. And that's the thing that you start out with. And when you have Cale Makar, and they don't have Miro Heiskanen, Thomas Harley is really good too, and he's had a big-time breakout for them. It is not the same. The ability to go from, okay, Thomas Harley is great. We think that he can handle matching up against Nathan MacKinnon all series long. Okay, great. What else do you have? What happens after that? Because with Miro Heiskanen, they go from, all right, Miro will take MacKinnon. And Harley then gets everybody else, right? He gets to they get to pick and choose which matchup they want for him to go out and go beast mode on. Their depth on defense is a huge concern. And I mean a huge concern. If you look at their overall numbers as a team, they have a couple of games left to play, but without Heiskanen, their expected goals is in the 40s and like the mid 40s, not like 49.6%, like the mid 40s. Their shots, their scoring chances, their high danger chances, everything is way down without Miro Heiskanen. He is the key to the entire series because with Miro, they're an elite team. They're a top 5 team. This is a true clash of the Titans. Without Miro Heiskanen, the Avalanche, on paper, have a better defense. And I think that their forward core, I would just call it a push. Sure. Because both forward cores are excellent. And if we're calling it a push, I would call it a push. But if we're going to say it's even, Nathan MacKinnon plays for one team, not both. And the team with him has the advantage.
I think that's a fair statement. I can't argue against that. The one thing you didn't touch on there, AJ, and E, you can jump in on this one, the goaltending. Mackenzie Blackwood, obviously unproven in the playoffs, so what can you reasonably expect there? And Ottinger, we've seen kind of two versions of Jake Ottinger in the playoffs. We've seen unbelievably good Jake Ottinger in short stints, and we've seen an also not so good Jake Ottinger in one of the Dallas's 2 long playoff runs in the last couple of years. So, advantage Dallas by default, E, or what do you think about the goaltending?
Yeah, I'm going to give advantage Dallas, and not to be biased. And Jake is he's a good goalie. I'm not saying he's invincible. You're right, because he's had some good moments in the playoffs, and then he's had some not so good moments in the playoffs. Now, as far as Mackenzie, hard to jump to conclusion of him in the playoffs. He's never played in the playoffs. So, I mean, and that's why it's still an unknown. Yes, he has turned the Avalanche season around since Chris and the crew there, C-Mac and the crew went and got him with Wedgwood, retooling the goalie tandem on the fly. And yes, after that, there was some different players added, but it all started with Mackenzie Blackwood, and his numbers were absolutely phenomenal when he got to Denver. The numbers went back to reality a little bit, afterwards. He's had some inconsistency here these past few weeks. Let's not be afraid to call a spade a spade. He has been inconsistent, and we all know that. We all see it, and I think that it's a new season come this weekend. I don't care that you were great when you got to Colorado for 20 games. I don't care that you played for the San Jose Sharks and they were terrible at the start of the season. What we care about now is how you react to high-pressure situation playoff hockey that is this weekend, right? Or I'm assuming this weekend. I'm talking out of turn, but I'm assuming at some point this weekend we'll see game 1. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's important for him to challenge himself, but you have to give the advantage to Dallas because of what I said. It's unproven. He's never done it. We don't know how he's going to do it, right? Do I think he's going to do well? Absolutely. I do. But right now, there's a bagel next to his stat, right? Which is 0. Yep. He hasn't played playoff hockey in the NHL.
Just a fact.
Yeah, and you just look at what Ottinger did against the Avalanche last year, and it was pretty good. He had 3 games in that 6-game series. 3 of those games, he didn't allow more than 1 goal.
Pretty good.
There you go.
I mean, Edmonton was the only one to really take him down a peg because Ottinger was awesome in the Vegas series. He was strong in the Colorado series. He had a couple of wobbly games, but otherwise, you're looking at it. It ended really poorly against the Oilers, but Ottinger was great early in their postseason run, and with Blackwood, it's just a shrug emoji. You just don't know what he's going to be. He could be fantastic and finally step into the potential that has been bestowed upon him since he was young, as a top goaltending prospect for a very long time. But until we actually see some proof of concept here, it's all just sort of hopes and dreams. Whereas we know Jake Ottinger has been a much better playoff goalie than not in his career, and that is where I think you say that's the big advantage. And unfortunately, when it comes to playoff hockey, goaltending is the great equalizer. A lot of good teams have gone home because their goaltending didn't hold up, or Yaroslav Halek goes Super Saiyan and stops the Alex Ovechkin Washington Capitals back in the day. There are examples of goaltenders just straight up stealing a series, and that's life. This is not as good a team as the 22 Abs, where their goaltending needed to be not terrible.
Didn't matter.
Yeah, it just needed to be not terrible, and that got them a Stanley Cup. And that's not this. Yeah. Dallas is better than. I would say this Dallas team, even without Miro, is better than 3 of the 4 teams that the 22 team beat in their Cup quest. With Tampa Bay being
certainly 2. I would say certainly 2.
That St. Louis team was pretty good too. Get Edmonton out of here. Just don't do that. So I think that's their great equalizer, is the way that Ottinger has been in the postseason. That's what you have to look at. But the vaunted forward depth of Dallas, and that's what has been their like ticket to greatness, and multiple deep playoff runs that have yet to result in a Cup championship. Like their forward core being so deep and talented, it got better. Mikko Rantanen, Mikael Granlund, they add Tyler Seguin in. It's just that much better. That's a really good group. But for the first time in what will be their 3 postseason matchups, this Avs forward group is built to go toe-to-toe with them.
Yep. I would agree, and I just can't get over their shortcomings on defense without Heiskanen. It's really hard for me to look at that defense and feel good for Dallas. Yep. We've talked stars, we've talked keys, we've talked goaltending. Do either of you guys have any particular X factors you are looking at in this series?
I don't want to give too much away before I get into all my written content that will be behind the diehard paywall here. But I think my X factor here is going to be Jack Drury and friends, because I think if you go through and you look at how Colorado succeeded and failed in the postseason over the last 5 years, Nathan MacKinnon has gone off. They have won the series. Nathan MacKinnon has struggled. They have lost. And this is a deeper forward group than we have seen since the 22 team. I would say I think their center depth is better this year than in 22 because Darren Helm was their 4th line center. And I think
but Jack they got Drury's production out of that 4th line, right?
And that's the thing is they have the forward depth to sustain to sustain a couple of injuries and
be okay,
be able to just move on, right? If they have a top 6 injury, it's going to be tough, but they can continue to operate. There's not a death knell. If they get into a game 7, it's not going to be second center Lars Eller going out there, right? Just trying totally over his head. So I think for me, it's Jack Drury, and by extension of Drury, it's Colorado's 4th line, which has been fantastic since the trade deadline, essentially since it got put together. Parker Kelly, Jack Drury, Logan O'Connor, an exceptional trio together. And we've seen Jared Bednar has been hunting top lines over the last several weeks. He has been specifically putting Drury out there against opposing team top lines. That frees up Nathan MacKinnon to go against not top lines, to go against the opposing team's 4th line or to go against the 3rd line. That in a best of 7, I think, is going to be a big advantage. And even though the Stars have the home ice advantage, it puts Pete DeBoer in the position where he's got to try and find the matchup that he's comfortable with. And with a very competent Avalanche 4th line, there isn't this big bright spotlight of, all right, we're on home ice in Dallas. We're going to put Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, and Mikko Rantanen out there against name a scrub 4th line from the last couple of years. This is a very competent 4th line that has handled top line matchups, and since they got put together, has outscored their opponents only 4-3, but all of their other underlyings, their territorial dominance has been excellent. They've been very good, and that is against opposing top lines. Not taking on the other 4th line where our 4th line's better than yours. No, it has been Drury going up against top competition and not just treading water, but thriving. And I think that is the biggest X factor when you're talking about a deep Dallas forward group. Having that in Jared Bednar's back pocket is the first time that he will have that in any of the Pete DeBoer Jared Bednar matchups. It's the first time that they will have that in a Colorado Dallas matchup for over the last couple of years. That I think is that's my X factor personally.
Mine is on similar on the same kind of. I agree with everything you just said there. For me, it's Big Charlie Coyle. For all the reasons. You can ask him to go play, whatever you want, like on the top side of the lineup. He'll deliver. But right where he fits in the Avalanche lineup, that's their X factor. He can do such wonders. Forget about goals and assists. You're talking about a guy to take a face-off on the right side of things. You got to kill a 3-on-5 penalty kill. Shorthanded situations. Go take a shift against the top line. Go take a momentum shift. Make your wingers better. Make your wingers, really get involved in the play. And he's done all that. He's one of those jack of all trades, right? A little, whatever you call that, Swiss Army knife. And he's not little by any means. He chews his gum like a big man. That's for sure. All game long. I love it. But it seems like he's engaged. It seems like he's very intelligent in what he says. He's been in the trenches. He's been in the battles. I like the acquisition of Charlie Coyle. I loved it at the time. I love it even more when it's a matchup against the Dallas Stars. So that would be my X factor.
I like both your answers. I'm going to take the Colorado Avalanche defensive depth, though. I think a lot has been made about Dallas's weakness on defense, but quietly over the last 3 weeks to a month, or even go back to the trade deadline, the Avs' defensive depth has been nothing short of stellar. Eric Johnson is putting up ridiculously good numbers. Sam Malinsky has flourished over the last 3 weeks. Girard had some time off to be healthy going into the playoffs. A lot of things are showing so well for the Avs on their back end that it gives me confidence in you can trust these guys. You can trust the Colorado Avalanche defense in a way that I think things were more suspect in previous years. And yeah, obviously you have to stay healthy. That's true of everyone everywhere all the time. If injuries stack up, tough. But the Avs are 7 deep, confidently 7 deep on defense this year in a way that they haven't been since 22. So that's my X factor on that one. Now for the real question. I need a series prediction. I need a number of games. Pop offy, you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm going, and I'll tell you why the number reflects that. I think it's going to be tight games. I love the construction of this roster, and I know it's going to be a tough series, and I know and I respect the Dallas Stars, but the Avalanche, Mackenzie Blackwood's going to be stellar, and they're going to win this confrontation in 5. That's where I'm going with it.
Avs in 5. Aggressive. AJ?
I don't.
Dude's about to pick Dallas in 7.
I've had so much respect for Dallas all season long, and I'm trying not to over-index the way that they finished the season without Miro and with being pretty locked into where they were in the postseason. If I'm looking at the Avs and saying, well, they stopped caring for the last couple of weeks, I have to say the same thing for Dallas. So I don't want to over-index on the way that they have gone into the postseason, which hasn't been very good. I am kind of you have to prove it to me in order to believe it, and I'm not going to keep picking against history over and over. So Rudo's right. I'm going to pick Dallas in 7.
I knew it. Could tell. Could just tell. I'll split the difference in games. I'm going to say in 6, and I'm taking the Avs. I think they do kind of slay that demon, although they need to slay their Game 7 demon too, so who knows. They lose to Dallas in Game 7 again, I'm done. I'm out. It's over.
We know Rudo's wrong because the Avs won't win a playoff series at home. They refuse.
No, they're slaying that demon this year too. It's all happening, all right?
Get rid of all of them?
Yeah, just wipe them all out in one. That is going to wrap up our playoff preview for the Avs-Dallas series. You can check out the rest of the Western Conference and Eastern Conference in this playlist. This has been the DNVR Avalanche playoff preview presented by Bet365. Can a President's Trophy winning team actually get something done in the playoffs? We're about to find out. This is the DNVR Avalanche playoff previews. It's Winnipeg versus St. Louis. Winnipeg, well, they had their ups and downs in the second half of the season, do ultimately win the President's Trophy, get the lowest seeded St. Louis team in the West. That St. Louis team, however, very, very hot to end their season. Is this an easy one for Winnipeg, or are they going to have to dig deep to find a way past St. Louis?
Well, I mean, wow. I really didn't see the St. Louis Blues getting there. You're talking about that last 20-game stretch, 25-game stretch, whatever it was. Jim Montgomery's done a marvelous job. Again, kind of went in there, probably threw his hands up in the air, like I talked about, like the Ottawa Senators, I said against the Leafs, where I was like, guys, we have no pressure. We're dead in the water right now. We're really not going anywhere. Yep. Let's just have some fun. Let's try to go on a run, and then let's put the pressure on the other teams. And this is the same thing. Winnipeg finished first overall. They got all the pressure. St. Louis, they've been playing house money now for a few months, and they've been performing. I think the Four Nations really helped Jordan Binnington mentally, you know what I mean? Where all of a sudden he won there and he kind of felt good about his game again. It hasn't been good the last couple of years, right? Personally or as a team. They go in there. Monty brings new blood, new life. And boy, oh boy, Thomas was unbelievable. Kyrou was great. The guys, a little bit of a move that was underrated a little bit was the addition of Cam Fowler. He's been really good since he got there, you know what I mean? Which, again, that surprised me when they went and got him. I was like, what's going on there? You know what I mean? Like, I thought they would be selling and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just worked. So good job by Doug Armstrong there and company. Again, I think the one thing that the Blues have going is that they've been playing at that level. We all know the playoffs goes up a few levels. They've been at that level now for a few months. Winnipeg Jets, you talk about consistency, you talk about role models for the NHL this year with Hellebuck and everything. They've been awesome. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to, first President's Trophy in their existence. It's pretty remarkable what they were able to accomplish. Even with Arneal, I know he's been around and for the last few years, but obviously really taken over as the head guy this year on a full-time basis. Not when Bonus was stepping away from the team last year a couple times, but all of a sudden, can they do it? Can they get out of the first round? You know what I mean? And they have those demons a little bit, obviously, with the Avalanche last year, and can Hellebuck find his rhythm that he's had in the regular season and find that rhythm in the playoffs? We shall see. But this is I think I had a little bit of a hard time thinking about this one, to be honest with you, because I'm not a believer in the Winnipeg Jets. I'm not saying they're not good.
Yeah.
Just because of what we saw last year. And it's hard for me when I say last year against the Avalanche, and every year is different. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just having a hard time to believe that those guys are really for real. You know what I mean? And I know they're good, but can they be good in the playoffs? Remains to be seen.
I think what the Winnipeg Jets are and what they've been over the last few years is pretty established. I don't know how deep we have to dig into that. Obviously, they need better out of Hellebuck in the playoffs. They also are facing some injury trouble heading into this. How healthy is Gabe Vilardi? Will Nick Ehlers even play in the first round now? It seems like he might miss the entire first round. So they do have to deal with that a little bit. On the St. Louis side, I mean, you kind of Robert Thomas had 23 points in his last 11 games. That is like absurdly hot. You cannot be much hotter than that. And the team around him, guys like Kyrou as well, they were playing the best hockey of their lives, basically, down the stretch here to even get into the playoffs. And I guess I might be on a little bit the other side of the fence with you, E. Yes, St. Louis has been playing playoff hockey for a while now. So, one, they understand what it is. They understand what it looks like, and they understand what they have to do. But it's also grueling, man. When you're playing playoff hockey for that long, no one's going to be surprised if that team runs out of steam. They might just not have enough left in the tank for the actual playoff run. So I do think it gets hard there. What I will say, I really do think this series could hinge entirely on Binnington, though. If that guy stays hot, St. Louis probably has a pretty good chance. If that guy falters, I don't see how St. Louis could overcome that issue.
Again, we always say, you don't really need goaltending until you don't have it, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I do believe that Allebach he's going to win the Vezina, so let's move on.
Yeah, for sure.
And Binnington has won a Stanley Cup. He's won the Four Nations. He's won, he's proved to people that he can win. Now it's a matter of can they, can Hellebuck beat Binnington on a 4 out of 7 series and not just a one gamer like the Four Nations was, right? You know what I mean? So Hellebuck was on the short side of things, but goaltending I think is going to be key on this one. Holloway, I'm not too sure on the St. Louis side of things.
Yeah,
he was playing out of his mind.
Like he's going to be out too. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a big loss for them down the stretch there.
Yep.
Even though they did stay hot, you know what I mean, and talk to Calgary about the St. Louis Blues staying hot because the Flames went great. They just kept pushing, and then St. Louis just never deviated, never gave them a sniff, never gave them a chance. You know what I mean? So that's pretty crazy. That's off to Calgary because they never quit, and then they just kept going. But St. Louis, that's out to them. They felt the pressure, no pun intended, but like the fire of the Flames. You know what I mean? Coming up and from behind them, and they just kind of kept performing. So I think they'll be ready. I don't think this is going to be an easy feast for the Winnipeg Jets after I'm not going to say easy regular season, but it was fairly easy when it comes down to adversity and all that kind of stuff. They were first overall. So, we'll see what happens, but I'm looking forward to this series.
Yeah, I do think you can take advantage of St. Louis's defense a little bit. Not that Cam Fowler's been awesome for them, but the actual defensive side of the puck, you have Colton Parayko, who has never really lived up to the hype as a number one type D-man. And then they have a bunch of guys that are probably billed as more offensive defensemen than really lockdown defensive guys. They're leaning extremely heavily on a Philip Broberg that is not really experienced. Yeah, I know he was part of that cup run with Edmonton last year, but he only played in 10 games in that playoff run, and he was only playing maybe 15 minutes a night. This season for St. Louis, he's averaging about 21 minutes a night. So they're leaning really heavily on a young, pretty experienced defenseman there to bolster that D-core on its own end. I do think St. Louis could be a little bit vulnerable there too.
Yeah, and I do believe that maybe losing to the Avalanche last year, being the favorites, because they were, right? I mean, when I say favorite, I mean in the standings, they were better than the Avalanche. So maybe do they learn that? A lot of people say you need to learn through defeat and losses. We shall see if they learn their lesson. We shall see if they can take advantage of like you said, maybe a worn out St. Louis Blues. At some point, your steam has to run out, doesn't it? I mean, we'll see. So that's why my prediction is very simple. I'm going to go right away and say it. You know what I mean? I'm going 4-2 Winnipeg this time around, but I think it's easier and closer than I might leave it to be.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be close. My gut tells me St. Louis is absolutely going to hit the wall. I
can see that. I get it.
I just don't think they're going to have enough in the tank. So I picked a sweep for Winnipeg.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. I think games will be close, but I just think that, you say 4-0, I say 4-2. So we shall see, but we both obviously think Winnipeg's going to get through it. So
yeah,
there's a common ground there.
It just does not feel like when you have a team that gets in the wild card spot that's built to win, like that Florida team a couple of years ago, where maybe it felt like they underperformed in the regular season. This is not what St. Louis feels like. St. Louis feels like a team who performed to the maximum of their ability just to get into the playoffs at all. So I just don't know that they have a run in them, but there is a reason they play the games in the playoffs. Anything can happen, so we'll just have to wait and see. That's it for this one on the DNVR Avalanche playoff previews, brought to you by Bet365. Go check out the rest of the playlist for all of our previews, and who knows, the winner of this series and games may also be the second round opponent for either the Avs or Dallas. I mean, it will be the second round opponent for the Avs or Dallas. I promise you that. So could matter quite a bit. We'll see you in the next video. The other 1 seed in the West is Vegas from the Pacific, and they get the Minnesota Wild in round 1. This is the DNVR Avalanche playoff preview, brought to you by Bet365. I think this one might be a little bit less straightforward, only because Minnesota getting guys back. Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek come back at the end of the season for them, will be ready to go for this playoff series. Does that give them a chance, or is Vegas just too big of one of the favorites to win a cup this year?
And I like Vegas this year. I do. They're big. They're heavy. I like their decor. I've always liked their decor. The main guys are still there, right? Peter Angelo, and I'm a big Shea Theodore fan, and I love the depth that a White Cloud and Hague bring. That's just to name a few. But my question mark's always been in the net. I know Hill's done it, but that's not my favorite part. But I'm a big Jack Eichel believer. He had a wonderful season. You're talking about a bona fide number 1 center, a bona fide Stanley Cup winner now because of his run a couple years ago. I love the way he plays the game. He 200-foot game. It's heavy. He doesn't get intimidated. I think he is their leader. Mark Stone is now, on a secondary role in my book. I'm talking about as far as leadership goes. Eichel's really stepped up. His game and again his leadership abilities to lead a team to the cup 2 years ago. So I do believe that he does it again. And then Hurdle has been awesome when he's been in the lineup. Obviously, he wasn't healthy at the start, but this is a great acquisition last year. Didn't really pay off last year for them. But Hurdle's a big, heavy guy. So now you're talking about another big, heavy guy in the lineup. Is that going to be too much for the Minnesota Wild? And again, the Wild have been, I tip my hat to the Wild. Billy Guerin and those guys, they missed on, Spurgeon was out for a long time. Obviously, you just said it, Eriksson Ek, that scores the big goal to get them in the playoffs, right? To tie the a few nights ago or last night. And then Kaprizov, they're legit superstar. He's a legit superstar. How are they going to be in the playoffs? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to react to it. Their depth is, okay. I love Matt Boldy. I do. I really do. I think you learned some stuff at the Four Nations to be around all those great hockey players. But I think Vegas is going to be a little bit too much. Their heaviness. And you're talking about like a team that's running on steam. Like I said, I raised my hat to John Hines. Some people were talking about, I was listening to a show today about maybe like the Jack Adams, and I agree, because all the injuries, but then my only thing on a side note, because we are a DNVR Avalanche pod, but people never talk about Bednar with all the injuries, right? But I do agree, because that's our point with Bednar, is the point I was listening to today about John Hines, which it's remarkable what they did. And obviously Flowers not going to be playing. He's going to be on auxiliary on the bench, right? Backup. But he does bring that presence, to the goaltending, Gustafsson. And we'll see. I think the Vegas Golden Knights are going to be too heavy, and I think too deep. I'm not going to pronounce his name, but Dorofiev, whatever, he scores 35 goals, whatever it was. That is like, it just shows you how much they can, they can counter strike. They can play in the neutral zone with their speed. It's always been their identity, and oh boy, they haven't missed a beat there. And I think it starts on their back end, and I've always loved their back end, so I'm sticking with loving their back end, and I think that will make a big difference.
Yeah, I think the reality with Minnesota is that they just don't have the depth, and not, no fault of this current core. The reality is their hands have been tied with the buyouts that they've dealt with. And next year, the vast majority of those buyout money come off of their cap hit, and they can really flesh out that team. And then we start having a conversation about Minnesota. But as currently constructed, yeah, getting their high-end guys back, sure, they can be a threat, but realistically, they don't have the depth to really push, I don't think, in the playoffs. So I do think they come up a little bit short in that way. You know, unless Gustafsson stands on his head for a round or two or something like that, then it's possible. But both sides, great top-end stuff. Kaprizov, awesome. Marco Rossi's been amazing for them.
Yes.
On the defensive side, Brock Faber is sick. Spurgeon is a great veteran presence there. But then you look beyond that, you know, you're talking about third, fourth lines with guys like Freddie Gaudreau on it, which a fine player, but is he in the lineup on a real cup contender? I'm not so sure. Defense, same kind of thing. They're running out Declan Chisholm, a waiver claim that, again, a fine player, probably deserves to be in the NHL. Is that a guy you're playing on a team that's really pushing for a cup? Probably not. And Vegas is maybe one of the worst matchups I think Minnesota could have drawn in this playoffs. If they had swapped places with St. Louis and were playing Winnipeg instead, I'd probably give them more light at the end of the tunnel here. But I just don't see how this Minnesota team gets through a Vegas with an Eichel, with a healthy Mark Stone, or at least as healthy as he's ever going to be, with some of the key pieces down that lineup, and a very experienced, very good defense in Vegas too, with guys like Pietrangelo on that core, even down their depth of their D guys like Whitecloud. Vegas is just – this series is set up very, very well for Vegas, in my opinion. The only question mark for me is – can Aiden Hill perform to the level that Vegas needs him to in goal?
Or does Fleury become the X factor without even playing? You know what I mean? Let's come on.
You were pushing for that for the Avs last year.
Keep my season alive. And I know all those guys, and I know all the dirty secrets of that, you know, those players and the main guys, and, you know, because they were still there. I mean, a lot of them were there when he was there. So I don't know. I'm a big Marc-Andre Fleury guy. I mean, hopefully he gets to extend his career a little bit. Who knows? I'm not saying he's retiring, but it sure sounds like it. And, you know, hopefully he can get on, but I just can't see it just because of, you know, like I said, I tip my hat to Billy Guerin and the coaching staff for what they did all year long. But a little bit like we were talking about in the preview of St. Louis, you know, are they going to run out of steam, so to speak? And I know that the guys are coming back, the Kaprizovs and Eriksson Ekman, but is that going to be enough to, you know, really take over a deep, Vegas Golden Knight that's playing pretty well down the stretch as well?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be enough for sure.
Yeah.
But you never know. It's the playoffs. Crazier things have happened. I'll put it to you that way. Sounds like I know which way both of our predictions are going here, but what actual numbers do you have for this one?
I think this is my only donut of the first round. I'm going 4-0, you know, for Vegas. With no disrespect, like I said, to Minnesota, because I tip my hat to their season, but I'm going to go 4-0 Vegas Golden Knights with Jack Eichel leading the charge.
Did I ever ask you where that phrase comes from?
Which one?
Cobb. Why does Cobb mean zero?
I don't know. I've always heard that. You know that I'm French, man. I just follow what the guys say. Yeah, 4 Cobb. I remember one day I'm like, what's that mean? It was like, oh, 0. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Doesn't wouldn't a corn cob look like a 1 on the scoreboard? Like, I don't know.
Okay, that's 4 bagels.
There you go. Bagels. 0. I see the 0. I see the 0 with the bagel. I took 4-1, so that's why I ask, because that feels like 4 cob to me. So I do think Vegas has this one pretty well in hand. Again, Minnesota, wait a year, and you might be a different beast, but I just don't think you're quite there yet on this one. Vegas set up pretty well in round 1, and then we'll see. Of course, check out all of our other previews of round 1. We did every single series, so make sure you're looking at those, especially the Avs Vegas one, since, you know, we are the DNVR Avalanche after all. Go check them all out. This has been the DNVR playoff previews presented by Bet365. 3 truths about the modern NHL. The refs suck. The Buffalo Sabres will miss the playoffs. And Edmonton and LA will play each other in the first round. Welcome in to another episode of the DNVR Avalanche playoff previews. For the 4th year in a row, Edmonton and LA are taking themselves on in the first round, and this episode is brought to you by Bet365. These two teams have done this 3 times in a row, and this will be the 4th. Edmonton has won all 3. Given the situation, though, you have to feel like if there was ever a time that LA could do it, it's this year.
Wow, you know what? It's 4 times. I thought it was 3. That's crazy. You said 4 now. I'm like, oh my God, it is 4. That's nuts. And I guess they think that's good for hockey. I don't like it personally, but hey, whatever. They think it's like rivalries and stuff, which is fine. That's the reason why it was built that way, right? But I think this is the year they do it. Their record at home, I think they had to look after every 3 seasons now and say, okay, what can we do? Because this is what it is. We have to go through Draisaitl and McDavid's. What is it that we need to do to get through them? Well, first of all, goaltending. Like Darcy Kemper or not, you have the edge. I know people are going to say, well, Skinner brought them to the, I'm not telling you who brought who where last year. Well, Darcy Kemper's going to stand like that. Perfect. There you go. So, I don't want to hear. But what I'm saying is, for me, 1 for 1, forget about teams. Darcy Kemper has had an unbelievable year this year. And I know LA plays that system. It's not the, McClellan 1-3-1, but it's still very detail-oriented. They don't give up a lot because they don't score a lot. We all know that. But so it kind of protects the goalie, so to speak. But Darcy's had unbelievable numbers this year. Unbelievable. On top of it, they don't lose at home. They have 4 losses. And again, the 4th one was like, no one dressed or whatever it was. Like, you know what I mean? So they don't lose at home. And now they have home ice. So it gives you that thing mentally, that edge, maybe that we can get through them. And maybe they've had home ice before, but they've never had the record that they've had. That's whatever it's called now, Crypto.com Arena. I was going to say Staples, but and if you're old like me, the Forum.
I still call it Staples. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say the Forum. And for like Staples, well, it's Crypto.com, but whatever. So I do like their advantage right there. I do like the fact that they seem to Drew Doughty has made obviously we saw at the 4 Nations. This is a guy that's won that can help them, you know what I mean, through these rough times this year. If they do get rough times coming up in the playoffs, and we all know when you've been there, you all know how things work. So I think the factors of Kemper, the home ice, and the leadership of a Kopitar and Doughty probably can help them through, and for the first time in 4 years, get through Edmonton. That's my thoughts. I don't know what you think, but that's the way I'm looking at it if I was going to bet this series.
Yeah, I mean, Kemper, definitely a key for me as well. But the other side of it is, and the reason I believe that I think they will come through Edmonton this year is Edmonton is the opposite of healthy right now.
True.
Draisaitl, McDavid, they're healthy enough to play, but how healthy are they really? But their bigger problem is Matthias Ekholm, now expected to be out for the playoffs. And this is a team that for years has been teetering on the brink defensively. You mentioned the goalie matchup. Stuart Skinner is really, really struggled this season as opposed to what he put up last year for Edmonton. And that defense without Ekholm, who really Ekholm was playing pretty poorly anyway, but as far as defensive D, he was their number 1 guy. And without that, that is a team that has to outscore their problems by such a large margin that you run into trouble, especially against an LA that has a Kemper and a lockdown defense that is one of the stingiest in the league. So, yeah, I do think LA, if they can't do it this year, they're never going to beat that team. I'll put it to you that way.
I agree. This is it. You give up and then put the franchise for sale and move it in a different area code, and where you don't have to be in that division and play the Edmonton Oilers. Because you're right. This is, I do believe, in the Byfield, the ascension of the Byfields and their back end. Obviously, Drew being out so long gave, the Spences and, the world more ice time and opportunities to hone their skills, their game. So, I do like it. Danault is an underrated guy, too, and we all know he can go on those playoff runs and shut down guys like that. We all know last year he didn't shut him down because we would be talking about that, they can't get past Edmonton, so he wasn't that great, But what I'm saying is they have the pieces to do it. Seems like they have the health right now to do it. You're right, and I totally forgot. I read about it yesterday, but Ekholm, that's, he's the guy that's different than the other guys, and he's the guy that's been in those battles. He's been in those situations, and he knows what to do. And obviously, he did it last year with Edmonton, but in Nashville in those big years, so he's done well. And this is a guy that, if he's not there, there's no one to replace him. It's not like, you know what I mean? He's your key, he's your cog, right, on the back end.
Yep.
He's your main guy. So,
yep,
for all the reasons.
Obviously, the key players on Edmonton are not a big surprise. Already mentioned Draisaitl and McDavid. You have Evan Bouchard on that defensive end, who didn't quite have the year he had last season, but is still obviously a key piece for them. With Ekholm out, you are really looking at Stuart Skinner. He has to find a way to perform better and maybe find a little bit of what he had in the playoffs last year, or Edmonton is going to be in trouble. On the flip side, with LA, they really are a scoring by committee team. You are going to need someone to step up in these playoffs and be that guy to score for them. Obviously, Kempe is their leading scorer in the regular season. He's been a fantastic find for them over the last couple of years with his breakout, but can he be that guy in the playoffs for them next to a extremely experienced Kopitar? You mentioned Doughty on the back end, and Byfield, we're still really waiting to see just how good it can be for him in the playoffs. His regular season breakout over the last 2 years is good. I wouldn't say great. He hasn't turned into an elite player, but he's turned into a quality top 6 NHL guy. But can he help them go on a playoff run?
Well, he's the key. He's the key, I think. You're right. Fiala's been, mid-20s in goals-wise, But, I think Byfield's the guy. Big, brawny, tough, got size. He can play the game the way that can be played in the playoffs, which can be, tough. Again, the size and the speed is so there that if he can bring that and can make this his breakout party, then the LA Kings can get through, Edmonton. So I'll add Byfield to my the leadership group of Doughty and Kopitar, and then I'll add Kemper, obviously. But Byfield, I think he's your guy. He's your guy that if he can make it where all of a sudden where legends are born, where that's playoff time, and he becomes that guy, then the LA Kings will get through it.
I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but last year went 8 for 8 in the first round for picking the winning teams.
I remember that.
I think that was 7 for 8, so it's pretty good yourself too. So
yeah, I was like, I don't remember who I missed last year in the first round. I don't remember, but whatever. It was close, but I remember you got me by 1. AJ went 0 for 8, but it's no big deal.
Yeah,
it's
it's
fine.
bum. Confirmed bum. We're doing it again this year, E. We got predictions. Edmonton, LA, who wins it, and how deep does the series go?
Yeah, this year I'm going very straightforward. I'm going, because of the home ice, I'm going LA in 6. Not even 7. LA in 6.
You stole it. I'm with you. I think that's exactly the scoreline.
Okay, good.
LA
Yeah.
in
And
6.
again, we didn't even talk about that. We try not to, just so you guys know, so we don't come out and lie about it. Okay, I'll say this, good cop, bad cop, or whatever. No, I think Game 6 would be at home, right? You know what I mean? Because of I think that they. I think they go.
Actually, Game 6 would be away.
Sorry, would be in
yeah.
Edmonton, but I think they win in 6. You know what I mean? I don't think they even need to. They're going to take a 3-1 lead somehow, and then whatever, or maybe they lose the game at home just to throw me off, and then they win on the road Game 6. But I do believe they win in 6.
I do too. So that's an easy predictor for us, I guess. We don't have to get too complicated with that one. There are 3 other series in the West, and of course all of the East to get into as well in this series of playoff preview. So make sure you're checking out the rest of the playlist. This has been one of those videos, and this DNVR playoff preview is presented by Bet365. We'll see you in the next video.
We all silly like the mayor.